It's called Coaching Connection.
Do you want to start or do you want me to start?
I'll let you start.
It's called Coaching Connection.
Wait, what was when we played? I think it was maybe my first trip
Y'all played each other in class?
to go to state. Really
Because it was the
mixed
same
up.
year you won.
That was the same year we won.
Yeah. A real good guard that went to UT.
Houy. Well, that was the year after
It was
we
after.
won. It's a true when they say like you're not gonna remember like scores and teams. You're only gonna remember like the moments and the memories.
It's called Coaching Connection. It's called Coaching Connection. It's called Coaching Connection.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Coaching Connections with Marcus Alvarado. On today's episode, we've got such a treat for you. We've got two highly successful coaches in a jam-packed episode full of valuable information. You're not going to want to miss it. This is a championship conversation between two state championship coaches, Triva Corrales, Rihana Morgan. I'm going to stop talking now. Let's get right to the episode.
I'm Coach Morgan.
I'm Coach Corrales.
I guess my first question is kind of the end in mind. You know, with you went to state 5 years, right? What were your experiences like?
That's a great question because they were all so different. I remember the first year, we were just talking earlier before we started recording that you remember moments and memories, not necessarily the scores and even who you played for me. But I remember the first year we had gotten the bid to play Duncanville. And I was like, okay, we can do this. And I remember we were in the locker room right next door to them. And I heard banging. And I found out after the game that Kathy Morgan took her shoe off and threw it against the wall because we were only down by 3 at half and broke her heel and had to wear her assistant's shoes.
Oh, wow.
The second half.
Interesting.
And she came on the bus and asked to talk to the team and said, y'all are awesome and you've just put yourself on the map.
Oh, wow.
And then to go in 2018, the next year, this is just a short recap of everything that I can remember. I remember standing there and there was about 1:30 left in the game and I told myself, holy cow, I'm going to win a state championship. Mm-hmm. I couldn't believe it. And one of my best players fouled out. Mm-hmm. I won't say her name, Kira White. And then we, in about 1:30, we lost on a free throw putback. Mm-hmm. And I was in shock. I couldn't move. I couldn't even cry. I couldn't think. I couldn't believe it. Mm-hmm. All the hard work, the even getting there back to back. And so then the next day, or that Monday, we go back to school. And I walk down the hallway. And it's about 7:30. And the lights are off in the gym. And all I hear is boom, boom, boom. And I look in the gym and I open the door and my entire team is in the gym working out.
Oh.
And I was like, in that moment, I was like, we're going to win it.
Yeah.
We're going to win it all. We're going to go back and we're going to win it all. And that was the grind. And then, you know, then we graduated a lot of kids and a lot of people were like, oh, you only won because you graduated, you know, so many kids. And I was like, well, that's motivating. And we went back a couple more times. So I think they're all just very different for me, all very special, but in their own little way, moments like that just stick out for me.
You talked about like that moment when you had the feeling that y'all were going to win.
Yeah.
And did you have that same moment when you did win? Because I distinctly remember that with about 1:30 left. We were playing DeSoto, we're roughly 5. And it's that feeling like, oh my gosh, we could win this all. Not that we're underconfident, but it's like when it hits you, it's I don't even know how to put it into words. It's like, it's overwhelming. Yeah. And I didn't know what to feel in that moment either. I know that when we played Capel in the semifinals and we won on that buzzer beater, well, technically, I guess it wasn't a buzzer beater because they put a second back on it, but I called my final timeout with under 2 minutes left, and I never call my timeouts ever.
Me neither.
And the girls know. They always know. I always have timeouts. Timeouts. But I told them, I said, remember how all season I've said I always have timeouts for you guys. Always.
Right.
This is not one of those times. Don't you dare call a timeout. And I remember listening to the commentators after the fact, and they're like, what is Coach Houy drawing up right now? And I don't know what I was drawing up.
Really? Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just, you're in the moment, you got to go with the flow. And I really don't know. And something just told me, hey, you got to foul. And we practice late games and stuff like that, but there's never a perfect time to, okay, at 2 minutes, you're going to foul if you're down 7 points or, whatever. But something just told me, hey, we got to start fouling. We got to do this. We got to do that. And that moment, I almost felt like, man, we can't let it slip away, right? We were down 7 points with, minute and 40 left. It was bizarre. And just the crazy turn of events with Cam getting her and one, and then Ramsey hits a 3-point shot, and then Mercer, their point guard, missed her only free throw all night.
Unbelievable.
And it was just one of those, like, and I just am very, very faithful. I'm very spiritual. And I remember when the girls broke out of the timeout, I walked toward half court, and I was like, God, this, to your will be done. Whatever that is, to your will be done. And I'm a huge believer. Like, he just said, okay, it's my will. And all of these events, just crazy events that panned out, and then Nat hitting the buzzer beater that she said she was going to hit all season long was just bizarre. And once we took care of that semifinal game, it was like, we can do this.
Yeah.
We can do this. And I remember, so we played DeSoto again, and I remember calling you the year before and asking for advice. And we used that advice. So the year before, one piece of advice Triva gave, I don't know if I should share this or not, but she said, don't be afraid to change up the defense, and don't be afraid to press them. And we felt like, had we done that the year before, that maybe the outcome could have been different, but we didn't know that we'd have the legs to do that against those 7 D1 players.
Right.
So anyway, when we were coming into that game, I asked the girls, I was like, hey, remember what we said last year with DeSoto? What do you guys think? We're pressing? And without a shadow of a doubt, every single one of those returners was like, yes, we're pressing.
Absolutely.
And from the get-go, we started pressing. And I think for them, that was their young group, and it kind of caught them off guard.
Right.
We have a kind of a motto with pressers. We call them bullies. And, when you're in the driver's seat, you're always the bully, bully, bully.
Right.
When someone bullies you back, sometimes you don't really know how to
react.
react. Yeah. But that was so thank you. That was a huge piece of advice that we took, learning our lesson the year before. And whether or not we thought we had the legs, we knew that we had to put all our cards on the table for that game.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's what happens a lot. And then you tend to think, well, we don't want to get beat, but it's kind of the most aggressive teams, usually win. Whether it's softball or basketball or football, like, you have to just go out there and be aggressive and not passive. And, we learned our lesson with that, with, facing in Duncanville and Allen and DeSoto and all that. But I would say when it came down to the 2019, and we had, we were up, and we had the ball underneath their basket. And, I also remember listening to the commentators after, and them saying, well, if I was coach, I'd probably throw the long ball. And we threw the long ball, and my kid was wide open and, blew a layup. But at that point, it didn't even matter. We just needed to get it in. And, but I remember being so focused on that one game, because the previous year I was like, thinking we won. And I was like, I'm not doing that ever again until that buzzer goes off. And so my assistants were so excited, and I was like, leave me alone. Like, let me just focus. Like, I just need to make sure that they're so tall, right? Like, there's not a tip and put back, or just something crazy could go down. And when she caught that ball, I always tell people, one of my biggest regrets about the 2019 team that we won is that I wasn't in the team picture. Because it was so physically exhausting. That was our 3rd trip, and the season is so long from start to finish. And I was thoroughly exhausted. That I just felt this huge weight lifted off my shoulders. I was crying. I don't even know what I was crying about. I was just crying. And, you know, I was happy. My mom was there, and my family. And I don't know. I just kind of like broke down finally. Like you hold it in and you're working and grinding and grinding and, you know, dealing with all the stuff that we deal with as coaches that, like you did it.
I think it's a lot of kind of what you're saying, what we deal with as coaches. We kind of have to put a face on a lot and fake it till we make it.
Right.
And all of the, you know, slings
second
and
guessing
arrows
and
we got to take all that in. And then I think I felt the same way when it finally happened. It was, I didn't know what to think. I didn't know what to feel. I mean, obviously I was happy, but it was like, you know, just a sigh of relief. And I know everyone says, enjoy the ride. And tons of people enjoy it. Just enjoy it. Get out of here. You know, you can't enjoy this.
There's no enjoying, especially when you get to that point, because it's like immediate turnaround. Like, hurry up. Here's the next one. Here's the next one. You're in the playoffs, and there's no stopping and smelling the roses. There really isn't. I think that's not true. But I would say, you know, it was very special. I think being the first in this area to do it. But I always told people I spoke to and myself that it doesn't matter to me if I was the first, if there's not a second. So when you did it and your team did it, I was so proud of y'all. I was just, it was the greatest feeling to know that it maybe some way, some form, some fashion, it inspired another team in the area to tell them, we can do it also. And then even with Jackie and Brennan going, like I was really like, come on, let's go. Let's just kind of get this ball rolling, because for so long, they say at the regional tournament, that's kind of the state tournament for the teams from like Laredo and Harlingen. That's their state tournament because they never make it. And then, you know, when we make it to state, or someone from our region would never really win. Right. You know, you want that draw. And so to change that game and that narrative was great for us, but it was an even better feeling when y'all did it. I was so proud of y'all.
I appreciate that. I think you guys were kind of the inspiration for us. You know, when we lost you guys in 2019, that was like, and our team was pretty good then.
Very good.
And then to know that we, in some ways, you know, we definitely got taller, you know, and we had all the puzzle pieces, and you know, it was inspirational knowing that we could get back, that we could get there. And I have had other coaches tell me that too, and this was kind of eye-opening for me and very humbling. Several coaches have said both years that we went, they said, y'all were the underdogs. How does it feel to win? You were the underdogs. I was like, what? We were the underdogs. I guess no one had really said that to me. And I guess sometimes it's nice being the underdog if that's how you're perceived. There's almost less pressure to be the one to upset versus the one that got upset.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. I remember reading a tweet by Jason Key, and he said, who you got in 6A, DeSoto or Judson? And we had 7%. Yep. I have it in my phone. Like, I will never delete that tweet ever. Like, it is awesome. So, I mean, but do you, if people label you as an underdog, do you really feel it that you're an underdog? Not, I mean, for us, we felt like we could win. We felt like, you know, even in 2019, I had all my kids sign contracts because we're not going to do this again. Like, you had to sign a contract. This is what you were going to do with social media. This is what you're going to do with your sleep. This is what you're going to do with your eat. This is what you're going to do with your workout. And you're going to commit to it for these, you know, 6 rounds. And they all signed it. And I'd ask them every day, every round, I'd say, who are you? And some of them would say their name. Some of them would say, I'm a Judson Rocket. And I'm like, nah, who are you? And every round, they were like, why do you keep asking that? And then before we went out on the court, our championship night, I told them who they were. You're a champion. That's who you are. And when we come back out, you're going to be labeled that, a champion. But you're going to know before you go out, you're a champion. And it was awesome.
that's a good, the coach has to buy in and believe it and make their players believe it too, because if you don't believe it, it's not going to happen. And you brought up a good point. You talked about the contract. I remember when we were scouting. I don't even remember. Yeah, we were scouting, and your players were up there in the stands. I think y'all just played the first game, and they were scouting also. And I was sitting next to my assistant. We're jotting down defenses and stuff, and I said, "Did you catch that defense? It looks like they switched it." And one of your own players, I don't remember who it was, but one of your players said, "Oh, that was that matchup zone, that 2-3 matchup or something like that." And I was like, "Who said that? Where did that come from?" But I was humbled, and this is what I preach to our girls too, is how bought in they were. And I didn't see a cell phone out. Everybody's watching, they're intent, they're talking about it, and that's the buy-in that it takes, because we can buy in, right? But unless they buy in, it doesn't do any good, right?
Yeah.
And so we used you guys as examples. Like, look at what they're doing. When we scout, this is what it's supposed to look like. I don't want to see phones out. You're talking about it. You're writing it down. And the year we first made it to state, I remember specifically Natalie Huff and Ariana Robertson. We drove the team to Austin to go scout Lake Travis and I'm going to say Vista. And Natalie and Ari asked me for a pen and paper. Or they asked me for a pen. They had their little pamphlet they were writing on, and they were writing down their scouting notes. And that was when it hit me. I was like, this is the buy-in. If we got these two, and they can take the team on their back, then everyone else will start doing it too. And that was kind of like the flip page that we needed to show the buy-in, and that they knew that they were capable of winning too.
Mm-hmm. So now that after you've won it all, did you ever ask yourself, well, what's next now? Because it's like everybody's dream, right? To win it all. And now what do you do? That was hard the next day. A lot of people, at least for me, were like, oh yeah. And I was questioning myself, like, do I still grind the same way? Like, what do I do? I asked one coach, a mentor of mine, he was like, that's easy. You go win it again. I'm like, yeah, okay.
Is that easy?
But how was that for you? Now that you've won it all, what now? You're so young, in your career. I was at the tail end of mine, thank you, Lord. But you have a long way to go.
It's hard. I mean, like this season, we probably felt more pressure than we've ever felt. When we lost in the semis, the next year we had pressure, we won, but then just all of the talk, back to back, you're going to win next year. We all felt the weight of the world on our shoulders.
Yeah.
And this season was one of those for us. We kind of had even when we won, and I'm not taking it for granted by any means, but we had kind of a motto in that sometimes the rise to the top is kind of the luckiest team.
Yeah.
To stay healthy for...
The stars have to be aligned.
Right. Yeah,
for
exactly.
Sure.
For 40 games, it's impossible. And we were so blessed over the past 3 years to not have any crazy injuries. But this year, I mean, we had just injury after injury after injury, and we had 3 ACL injuries. All my point guards, we had 3 ACL injuries in one season. One in the regional semifinals, one in the regional finals.
Yeah.
Our big Ari, she almost had a season-ending ankle injury. She was this close. Her doctor told her to not being able to return that season.
Wow.
And we'd pick one piece up, and then the other piece would fall. Pick another piece up, and going back to what we were talking about as coaches, like I had to walk into every practice, and I had to put a face on, to be honest, and
let them know it's gonna be okay.
Yeah, and reassure them and comfort them and encourage them when deep down, I was struggling, and I didn't have somebody to comfort me and encourage me. You know what I mean?
That's right.
So for us, this season it was hard because of all of that pressure, and then couple that pressure with all of the injuries. It was tough. So now what?
I was even at that game where y'all played Brennan. That was one of the most phenomenal games I've ever seen in my career. And I think your guard even went down at the very, very end of that game. And I was like, but to look back now, think about all those injuries and all the adversity, and to still put your team in a chance to win it, to get back, that's a tremendous feat, you know, that they accomplished, where the previous year winning it all. I mean, you learn so much from different seasons, right? But I still think that this year's team that you had, I mean, had so much heart and grit and perseverance, just as much as any of the best teams I've ever seen. It was an amazing game.
I agree, and that's what I still struggle with, with all of those injuries. I mean, to have we had a total of 4 ACL injuries this season, and we hadn't had one in 3 years. And 3 of them were all on varsity, and they were all point guards, every single one of them. And I struggle with that because I think of how much heart they had and how much grit and how they did everything we asked of them. You talk about signing the contracts and everything, like everything I asked of them, they did. And they bought in, and they weren't going to lose that game. And then just to see, like, that's the outcome. And I think of, like, Natalie, when she tore ACL with a minute and a half left in double overtime, it was like, this can't be happening. And she put them on their shoulders and on her shoulders. And she, in the timeout, she said, no, we're not losing this game. And it's like she did everything right. And as a coach, it's like, man, you can't ask for anything else for kids to buy in and play with heart, play with passion, play for each other. That's what they did. And then it was a tough ending for us. It was a really tough ending for us.
Yeah, but I think that just looking back now, I think you're probably just as appreciative of that team as you were as your championship team. I mean, it's about the effort and the preparation they put in. And sometimes, like, it has to be aligned, and it's not in the cards. But how blessed to even be at that point. Yeah. There's so many coaches I know that, have never even made a playoff or won a playoff game. That's another thing. To win a playoff game or to get to a regional tournament or to get to state. Those girls have been beyond blessed, to experience such success. So what, I know you were a great motivator for your team, as I feel like our coaching staff was for our team, but what motivated you?
That's a great question. I was always the one when I went to the state tournament. I remember watching you guys in the state tournament, watching Camacho, Kathy Morgan, and I was always, I feel like I watched the coach more than I watched the players, especially when you get that deep into it. And I always wondered, what does it take to get there? What does it take? Right. And I don't know if there is an answer to that. I having been there, I don't even know what the answer is, but that was a dream for me. And I don't mean for it to sound selfish, because it's not about me, it's about them. And but to get that opportunity was always a dream come true. And so the motivation, honestly, probably the girls. I would say 3 things for me: the girls and their buy-in and their heart. I would say like my drive and my own work ethic and everything. That's how we were raised. We were talking earlier, I'm a country girl. You work hard, you bust your ass, whatever you do, you bust your ass. So I did that. And I didn't have all the college playing experience. I didn't have all that stuff. I had great mentors. I got to work for Gary Blair when they won their national championship. And so, you pick up those little pieces, but you got to work your tail off. And you got to get a staff to work your tail off, their tails off too. But then the third thing, aside from, the work ethic and the girls, is just my faith. And I pray before every game and I pray after every game. And it's really tough after the games to thank God. I know, and just being completely honest, it's tough, but I always say it's your will. And it's really hard sometimes to utter those words, but I wouldn't be in the position I'm in if it wasn't for him. So he's probably my biggest motivator, is just my faith along the years to get to where we've gotten in such a short amount of time. That's a God thing.
Definitely. I think that I also too pray all the time, but I had to, along the way, I had to change the way I prayed, because I was saying, please God, let us win. Please God, let him make the free throw. Please God, don't let her turn it over. And I had to you know, I remember one game specifically. I was like, what am I doing? Like, stop doing that. You know, that's not showing faith.
Right.
And so I started to pray differently, you know, just kind of like you said at the very beginning of this podcast is let your will be done. You know, just guide me, give me wisdom, give me strength, help me to believe, help me to be a good communicator with the officials. Because I kind of used to be a hothead. And then I said, no, you know what? They're human beings.
Right.
Their job is just as tough as mine is. And I became more of a friend. And, you know, tell me why you called that. And after I changed the way I, you know, approached people and I approached even my prayer with the Lord, things changed, you know, and I felt less stress and, you know, okay, well, you called it, let's move on, you know. I mean, and I think you, as a younger coach, you know, I was very, like, I would say overzealous. And as I got older, you know, I realized, you know, it's a lot of people will say, oh, the refs lost the game. But as a coach, you know, when you look at film, man, we lost the game. You know, those bad calls are just, they're very just obvious. But when you go back and you look at the stats, you know, we were in control of our destiny. But I would say for me, you know, a big motivating factor is just being a kid from, you know, the South Side or the West Side. And from a young age, I wanted to win a state tournament. I knew I wanted to be a coach by the age when I was in 6th grade. I knew I wanted to be a coach. And I'll never forget, you know, so many people along the way, they're like, oh, what are you going to do? And I was like, I just want to be a high school coach and win a state championship. And so many people laughed. And were like, yeah, right. Hey, good luck. You know how many people, you know, and give me the stats of all that couldn't do it. And what I came to realize is most of the people that tell you that is because they can't. And I'll never forget when I was in the interview for Judson High School. It was between myself and Bill Avey, longtime coach at Southwest High School. And I remember the principal asked me, okay, we're bringing you guys back again. You know, why should we hire you? The infamous question, right? I said, because I'm going to win you a state championship. And I said that, and it was bold, but I felt it. I felt it all since I was a young kid in my heart. That's just something I wanted. I dreamt about. I thought about. I worked towards it, and I just needed to be in the right situation with the right kids. And those kids, like yours, they bought in, you know. And that's what's special is when I try to tell younger coaches, like, don't win or go through seasons based on your talent, because you're gonna then it's gonna be a roller coaster ride for you. Like, you have to work to build a program, and a true program is not you being the teacher.
Right.
Like, your kids are teaching the younger kids, and it's a well-oiled machine, and it's just rolling and rolling and rolling. And every year I see, you know, some coaches come in and they're reteaching everything, reteaching the offense and reteaching the defense and reteaching the warm-up, you know, the stretches, you know, things like that. And I would tell the kids, if I come in the gym and I can figure out, I can tell who the captain is, then we're failing as a coaching staff. Everybody should look like a captain. Everybody should work like a captain. Everybody should talk like a captain, because your voice is the great equalizer. Everybody can use it. And so I think that really gave the kids a lot of buy-in and made them feel, whether they were first off the bench or didn't play. I mean, if you look at our state run, I played like 7 kids, like the whole time, you know, and the kids that didn't play, they were good with it because they knew their role. They knew what they were producing and what they were not producing. And you don't have teams like that if the kids are not bought in, you know.
I think a big piece of the buy-in too is, you kind of alluded to it, is giving the kids kind of voice. You know, for them to truly buy in, they have to know that they're in control. And I talked to our point guard Haley Adams right after we beat Capel. And she said the most just thought-provoking thing to me. She said, man, I don't know what you said in that timeout, but gosh, she was like, you really listen to your players. And I was like, what do you mean? She goes, I really miss that. You know, you always listen to us. And even in film review, you listen, you let us have a voice. And for us, especially as female coaches, we're definitely trying to teach them, yes, the game of basketball, but beyond the game of basketball.
Yeah.
And I want them to have a voice and I want them to feel empowered.
Absolutely.
And so when we have film reviews, our film reviews, they're not quiet. And what I mean by that is everyone is giving feedback, not just the coach.
Mm-hmm.
And I ask what they think. And you know, like I said, do y'all want to press DeSoto? Yes, we want to press them. And we're going to do this and we're going to do that. You just got to have a voice. I mean, Ari was the one against Brennan at halftime that said, we just have to run a 5 out. And I said, why do you think that, Ari? She said, because we can't hit anything and we can't get it inside. And they're just going to sit in that zone because we're not shooting the ball well. We have to run a 5 out. I said, well, Ari, we haven't practiced a 5 out all season. She goes, don't have anything else to lose right now. So you know, and
that's the best, right?
Yeah, and that's what we
awesome.
did. And she was the first one to hit the 3-point shot to start opening that lid. And then we had another one. Eventually, they had to pull out of that zone. But listening to your players is, I feel like, and this is my personal opinion, but I feel like some of the most winningest programs trust. That's one of my core values is trust. Trust what their athletes have to say. Yeah. It's a two-way street.
Yeah.
And we want to trust them, but they want to trust us too, that they're going to make the right decisions and they're going to be self-led. To this day, I still don't know, we talk about stretching, I don't know what our girls do in their moving stretch. And they laugh at me, like when I bring a new group in, well, coach, what do we do? I said, I don't know. I've been here 10 years and I couldn't tell you what y'all do in your moving stretch because I know that you're going to do it. And you're not going to require, you're self-led, you're not going to require someone to kind of push you along. And you talked about the prayer. I know I'm backtracking, but I would say I changed in my prayer the way I prayed too. And it was keep us happy, because with girls, you got to keep them happy. You do. If you get them the wrong Gatorade, you're going to hear about it.
Yeah.
If the shoes are the wrong color, you're going to hear about it. Keep them happy, keep them healthy. Mm. And then I would always say, just help us to glorify your name.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
And my husband, we're almost at 1 year. In 10 days, it'll be 1 year. And he is just a huge, huge, faithful Christian man. Mm. And he helped teach me how to pray. And it's almost kind of nice for us because he's not into the coaching thing. Yeah. And or teaching. And so it's nice to kind of have someone else who's a different voice in your head. And where we're talking X's and O's and, you know, should have done this differently, should have done that differently. He's got a totally different viewpoint on things. Mm-hmm. And he just enjoys it. And he reminds me, you know,
to have
fun.
Yeah.
Why are you doing it if you're not having fun?
Right.
Why are you in this career that you're in if you're not enjoying it? Right. And having that different lens, I think it's invigorating and it's inspirational and it keeps me going.
Yeah, that's great stuff. I love it. I know we would pray every day, and not just game days. That's one thing that we have never done. We pray before every single practice. We prayed. I like that. One of our kids we would label as a team chaplain, and she'd get the Bible and pray. And actually this old Bible that I used for 11 years, I handed down to Coach Camacho, and they use it. But yeah, it was definitely something we did every single day. And I think that that's important for those girls. We don't, you know, I told them, don't be a doormat. Mm-hmm. You know, you have to use your voice and beyond basketball. Mm-hmm. But going back to film, you know, and teaching them these things beyond basketball, my assistants we would all take a quarter because it was important to grow your assistant coaches. Mm-hmm. And let them break down film and show them. But as the season went on and we got closer and closer to our playoff run, our players started breaking down film. Mm-hmm. And the best way to learn something is to teach it, right?
Yeah.
And when our players are now teaching about our opponent, it was the most hilarious thing. I loved it because we'd get into the second round, and they'd always, a big rival for us was Steele. And we'd be in the game, and they're coming down, and my kids can see their formation offensively. And we are calling out their offensive play. Coach, they're running blue or whatever the play is. Okay, first pass that way. And like other teams, not just Steel, but like other teams are like, what in the hell are they doing?
I remember y'all doing that to us too, now that I think about it.
And they would just call, and it wasn't because they were cocky or anything. They just knew it. They knew it, and they were confident. They were like, okay, first pass is going there. And then we just try to be bees and disrupt everything. Like if we knew you were going to go, and that was we're not letting you run anything. You know, our motto was like, force them to make plays, don't let them run plays. You know, and so we wouldn't let people run plays against us. You'd have to get your star and make a play, and then we'd live with it. But all of that, you know, now fast forward, you know, 5-6 years now. I mean, all of those girls, they're all graduating right now with their master's degrees, super successful. You know, they're in the college game. And I think a big part of it is because we teach more than basketball. You know, teach them faith and teach them hard work and perseverance and work ethic, you know, which a lot of people don't have now. But I think that, you know, that's a bigger calling for us. But you had said something quite interesting that I can't kind of shake, you know. So if someone asked you for advice, like, how do I get there? How do I get to state? And you're like, man, I don't even know if I know. But what advice would you give someone?
Well, I would say a couple of things.
Get some good D1 players.
Get some good D1. But here's my motto too. You can have the best players on your team. But if they're not healthy, mentally or physically, they don't have chemistry. I think guys are different. I think guys can be super athletic and great players, and they can leave it on the floor and not matter. But girls can be catty. And chemistry is huge.
I think they can be both head cases though. You know, sometimes where maybe not their mental state or physical, but their emotional state. You know, they get so involved with stats that I think that they lose track of the ultimate goal and mission.
I feel like that's more prevalent now than ever because it's all about me, my points, my stats, my this, my that, and then social media exacerbates it. I think that causes us to lose focus of the main thing. But I think if I was to tell a player, if I was to give a coach advice as to how to get there, I would say, number one, you got to put in the time. You have to put in the time, and it's exhausting. It is, and that's going back to what we said after we won. It was like you don't know what to think because you're so mentally drained.
Absolutely.
Not physically. I can deal with being physically drained. Mentally drained, I am tired. I usually go through like a week of dormancy once basketball season ends because my brain doesn't know how to stop spinning. But you have to put in the time. And then I also think going back to what we talked about with, you know, getting everyone to buy in, you know, they say, you know, if you dream it, how does the saying go? Kind of like I'll believe it when I see it kind of thing or whatever. But I was dreaming it. I can remember distinctly driving home from practice one day, and I damn near drove to Judson, and I live off of Bulverde. And I realized after I was almost at y'all's cutoff, I was like, where am I? Because I started thinking about the state tournament, and I just started, and this was probably like second round of playoffs. And I just was like, what would it be like in that moment? And what do I do? And how do we prepare? And I just got so lost in this dream that I passed my exit by 10 minutes. And I think you just really have to believe it in order for it to happen. You can always work hard. Yeah, I'm going to work hard. But what's your end goal going to be? And do you believe it?
Yeah.
Because if you don't believe it, those girls will see right through you.
Absolutely.
And they won't believe it. I don't know. Those are two things that come to mind that come to mind with me, you know, just in my experiences is truly believing it, and then having the work ethic, having your staff have the work ethic, and your players have the work ethic to get there, and to buy in the same thing, kind of like what you were talking about. We lose focus a little bit, and we get so caught up in some of that other stuff that we lose focus of why we're really there.
Yeah, and ironically, as rich of a tradition in athletics Judson is, there were some girls who had never even been to a state tournament, never even seen one, never watched one. So it was important to get them to one and show them, look, this is what the court looks like. This is where, you know, you could be one day. It's in your backyard. And I think that a lot of kids, we say that, but they don't even know what that looks like. You know, so dreaming it, but also seeing it, you know, for a younger coach, like take your team to a state tournament. Let them see it. Let them experience it and see that they're 15, 16, 17, 18, just like you. They put their shorts on the same way you do, you know, and I think as a coach, though, just always getting better, you know. Yeah, you can run the, you know, same offense you did 10 years ago, but is it relevant to the team you have now?
Right.
And a lot of coaches don't change that, you know, and, you know, change your lingo. It's okay. Grow the game, you know. I remember one thing that I started really getting into shooting percentages, and, you know, I'm a big PGC advocate, and I think without PGC in my life, point guard college, none of this happens.
Really?
I remember going to a clinic actually with Coach Camacho, and I flew to Colorado, and we went to a glacier clinic that was teamed up with PGC, and they were talking about the most accurate shooters in the game. You know, one person they're talking about was Steph Curry. And why is he so accurate? And we have coaches teaching beef, right? And 10 toes to the rim. But if you look at Steph Curry, he has this torque in his shot, right? So he starts here, but he finishes sideways. And they were talking about how that emulates a dart thrower. And a dart thrower is the most accurate shooter there is in any sport, any game, because they're hitting a bullseye every single time. And how does a dart thrower stand? They stand sideways and they shoot this way over their shoulder. And if you watch Steph Curry, that's exactly how he shoots, like a dart thrower. And he ends with his feet at an angle, not 10 toes to the rim. And I can remember doing that and implementing that. And, you know, the last probably 2-3 years of my career, going to camps and clinics, and then still hearing coaches talk about 10 toes to the rim, and we're at this shooting station. I'm like,
it's so outdated,
you know, but you have to continue to evolve and get better and learn the game and learn the craft. And it's so much, it's a lot besides the buy-in. I mean, you have to get better as a coach. And you have to have a great staff, and you have to have great hires, you know, and not be afraid to hire people who are better than you in different areas. You know, if you're not a great defensive coach, then hire one, you know, and then give them the reign, let them coach.
Yeah.
You know, as so many people want to be in control, but you have to just let them coach. And maybe not necessarily, you know, in the game, but let them coach in practice, you know, give them their time, even if it's pre-practice and you're working your post and guard split, things like that. I mean, that's the time. But I just think that, you know, that would be a lot of my advice to a younger coach, that, yeah, you got to be, you know, diligent with your kids and making sure they're getting better from a grassroots level, you know, not just when they get there as freshmen, but middle school, maybe even elementary. But you also have to get better as a coach, you know, and I don't know that a lot of that is happening besides the TABC clinic, because we all know you're going to write down 1 million drills, and then they're going to be in the binder, and you're probably going to open up that binder again until you go to the TABC clinic again
Next year.
the next
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
Get a new binder.
And then you get a new binder, and you have all these TABC binders, and maybe you did a drill, right? And you liked the drill and it worked, but I think you have to self-awareness, self-evaluate yourself. Where can I get better as a coach? Whether it's being X's and O's, or maybe you need to be a better bench coach like I did for myself. I realized, you know what? I don't like what I see in timeouts or my communication with officials. I need to get better at that. Bring in people. I remember long time great coach, the first one to really get it to state here, I think, in San Antonio was Wendy Mead of Moore in high school. And Wendy would come to some of my games. I'm like, evaluate me. Like, tell me what you see when you look at me. You know, I'd have Noel Pompa. He's a mental training coach for my team. And he would work with them with their mental training. But when he'd go to the games, he'd evaluate me. He'd like, your body language isn't good. You know, and so these things helped me be a better coach for my team because they need that. But I think a lot of younger coaches, you know, it's just so much. And then on top of that, you have your teaching and you have the parents and you have your lower levels that you're responsible for. It's a lot.
It's overwhelming. And I also think some of the older coaches who happen to still be in it, because I feel like there aren't too many of them in there anymore. But I think some of them are kind of set in their ways and maybe not willing to change. And I agree, you know, we have to have a degree of humility.
Right.
And if you don't have humility, you're not gonna survive in this profession. And I learned that the hard way in my younger years because I was a hard ass and I thought that I had it all figured out, and I didn't. I made a bunch of boneheaded mistakes.
No.
But I use those as learning tools along the way, and I didn't have somebody evaluating me. Maybe the parents, but
always,
they always, because they can always do a better job. But I do distinctly remember I watch coaches a lot, especially in the state tournament. Like I know you always had your chair and you'd pull your chair out in timeouts,
right?
And you'd sit in your chair. Like I pick up on what are they doing? What are their athletes doing during their timeouts?
Right.
Are they locked in? What is their bench demeanor like? How are they talking with officials? What is their energy like? I'm a pretty high energy person. I'm very passionate and very into it because I feel like what I do is what they're going to do, what the kids are going to do, right? And if I'm not into it and passionate and engaged, then they may not be.
Right.
And so my husband has taken some very profound pictures of me on the bench. And after the game, I'll say, man, there's a poster. He was known for his posters at the state tournament. He made all these posters. And one of them said, man, coach, you yelled a lot after the game. And then the other meme said, no, I didn't, prove it. And then proof. And then there's me just, it's the infamous picture. And I'm not in a negative, not yelling at the refs.
It's loud. You have to yell.
You got to get into it. It's intense. Yeah. And I want them to know. In fact, when we beat Steele in the regional finals to go to state, was that the year we won? No, it's meshing together.
See?
Regional finals. I don't remember. I know we played Steele, the Sydney Love era, because that must have been the year we won state when she almost beat us.
Yeah.
And that's the picture he took where I'm slamming my hand on the ground. And I said, we're not losing this game. And that passion, the girls are like, we're not going to lose this game. Yeah. We're not going to do it. And I think when we won, I think that was the year the girls told me that before I walked into the locker room, they said something like, we're going to win this for coach or something like that. And they're bought in to winning it, you know, for not just for themselves and not just from school, but for me. And that was humbling. I was like, why me? But that relationship piece with them. Vic Schaefer always says this every time I hear him speak. He says, your players have to like you to want to play for you. And the first time I ever heard him say that, that was what made me switch my gears. And not to be, you know, a coach that's buddy-buddy with the players. Sure. I don't mean that, but they have to respect you but they have to like you. And if you don't have that kind of relationship with your players for whatever reason, you're the drill sergeant, you're too hard on them, you're whatever, you're not getting involved in their lives, they're never going to respond in the fashion that you want them to respond in. And so when I tell them, just one of my questions I had for you as far as relationships, I tell my players all the time, I love y'all. And they know that, and it allows me to be harder on them because, it sucks when they get their butt chewed, but they know that I'm doing it out of love. And if they don't believe that, it's never gonna work.
Yeah. Going back to the bench, everything I do is so detail oriented, and I have a reason why I do every single thing. But I wanted to sit eye level with them. I didn't want to be above them, or I didn't want to be below them. I wanted to see eye level, and I always had my subs stand behind them. I wanted to see my whole team. I see a lot of teams that the subs will be where the coaching staff is, and those kids are they're not paying attention. They're looking around. They don't looking at what you're drawing up, and I always set them in a specific area. My point guard was in the middle. 2 and 3, 4 and 5. And then I had those coaches who worked with those positions on those sides. So when we got up, they would repeat what was just said and put it in their head again. But everything was meticulous, and having the kids, the subs behind us was very crucial for us. I needed to know they're not looking at mom and dad, they're looking at me, and I can see them. So I think just being detail oriented is very important. But relationship wise, how do you get kids? Number one question I probably got majority of my career: how do they run through the brick wall for you? Because they played so hard. Our kids, they're just relentless dogs, and practice was intense. It was crazy. But outside of the court, I loved them. I know they knew that, but beyond just saying like I love you, like they knew it because I knew their favorite color. I knew when their birthday was. I knew what their favorite food was. I knew if they're having a bad day or not. I knew where their parents worked. I knew their parents' first name. How many coaches can say that they know all that? A lot of them don't even know the profession. What do you want to be when you grow up? Can a coach answer that about every single one of their players? I could. I knew what their goals were. And I think because I cared outside of the court, is they knew that I wanted what they wanted, and that was for them to be successful.
Right. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I didn't know what it was that caused that type of relationship with us, but now that you're mentioning all those things, I mean, we're the same. I can tell you Natalie's favorite color is purple because she always wanted stinking purple shoes. We wouldn't let her wear them. We knew when their birthdays were. Seniors get cookie cake every year for their birthday. Just little things that you don't realize are mending that relationship and strengthening it. But back to the detail-oriented thing that you talked about, sometimes I guess I care about them so much that I don't let all the noise bother me.
Yeah.
And so I can give 2 examples. One, I was told that after a game, when trophies were being given out, that a team didn't want to accept the trophy. And the other team and people are like, man, that's such bad sportsmanship. Did you see that? Bad character. Tons of people told me that.
Okay.
I said, no, I didn't see it. Because that doesn't matter to me. That's not my kids. Now, if that was my girls, now we have an issue. That's not my girls. And so I taught them to drown out the noise, and you focus on bettering yourself because that's the only thing you have control over. Don't worry about all that other stuff. And so one thing that I do, and I kind of take a hit for it, but since we're doing this podcast, hopefully people will actually watch it and know why I do it. But so in watching coaches over the years, before the game, when we shake the players' hands, I used to always be the one to shake the players' hands on the other team. And in watching and learning other teams and getting into the minds of other players and other coaches, I went, why can't my assistant do that? And here's why I have my assistant shake the other players' hands. Because before the game, I want them to be locked in on the game. And I know, sometimes that pregame stuff that other teams do is just to get in your heads. We're going to do all this fancy defensive stuff and offensive stuff right before the game. And the players are like, oh, and then they're getting scared, oh my gosh, that girl's 6'7", whatever. And so when we do introductions, I try to get the girls to not focus on that. I want them to focus on me. And so on our game plan. And so when my assistant is shaking their hands, I'm down on the drawing board, just revisiting everything, talking matchups, trying to get them to look at me and focus on me, because I don't want the nerves, I don't want all that other noise to affect how the game might start or how the game might end. And so it's not about me being, not wanting to shake their hand. I want to shake their hands, but my focus is on my girls.
Sure.
And if that means that before the game, I have to sacrifice shaking the other team's hands because I want them to be bought in and listening and asking questions and focused, then that's what I have to do, because I'm big on fighting for them. Once they're a part of our program, they're our family, I fight for them. Yeah. I do everything for them because they have to know that. And back to the love thing, they have to know that.
See, I'm a little bit different in that area because I'm a big reader. And so I watched you on film the whole week. I have what you do down, what you're best at. So now I watched you just warm up. Now I want to shake your hand because I want to feel you. Like, are you nervous?
Your energy.
I want to feel your energy. And then I don't know how many times I've gone back and I'm like,
They're not ready.
They're not ready. They're not ready. She couldn't even look me in the eye. They're scared. And they were like, yeah, let's go. But I love reading the energy. I want you to look at me in my eye because I want to see if you're going to be the one to beat me. I want to be able to see you. And I'd go and they're like, how are they, coach? How are they? I'm like, they ain't ready.
Yeah.
But I can see your point too, because you want to be able, the coach from DeSoto did that. She has her assistant shake hands. I'm like, okay, well, that's cool. Whatever, it's out of my control. I can't control what you do or don't do. But everybody has their little, things that they do. Their own ways. If there's no right or wrong, it's just what works best for you and what's going to get your team to gain an edge. Yeah. That's what we want. That's what we all want to do. We all want to gain an edge. And up to, people ask me, y'all ready? No, we're not ready. We still have warm up. I'm going to use the warm up to get ready too. Like, okay, y'all ready? No, well, we got to talk. Like, we're ready when we go up for a jump ball. Now we're ready. But I think a lot of, people take even those times of the game for granted. Like, those are some of the most
critical times,
precious moments, for focus and delivery of a game plan.
And that's how we do it. I've known some coaches to be a little too extravagant in warm-ups. Oh, yeah. And again, the girls start getting nervous, especially for the underdog. Because I can think of a particular team that this started with, and
I think we're probably thinking the same team.
I think we're probably thinking the same team.
I wonder. Should we just call it that?
I actually kept my players, when I knew what they were going to do, I kept them in the locker room into the warm up intentionally. I waited for all of the extravagant stuff to happen. And then as soon as the extravagant stuff happened, then I said, Coach, you can bring them out of the locker room now.
This is good stuff. I mean, yeah.
Because again, we got to, we want an edge. And I know what's going to make them tick, and I know what's going to scare them off. And I don't know. I said that because I know that it can be misunderstood. And I never mean for it to be disrespectful or a lack of sportsmanship. It's just, at the end of the day, we do what's best for our team, and that's what's been best for our team.
A lot of teams do that. I remember Westlake does that. DeSoto does that. I mean, I remember, we were regional final, I think it was, and Westlake was in sweats. And I'm like, dang, y'all couldn't dress up for this? It's a big deal. It's a trip to state. That's just what they did. No disrespect to the game. That was, maybe it was their, superstition. I mean, heck, I don't know. I remember playing a district opponent, and the lights, during a warm-up, we're warming up, the lights turned out, the smoke went on, and they ran right through the middle of us. Oh, okay. Thank you, because you just motivated my team for me. I didn't have to do. I didn't have to do 1 ounce. It was great.
Yeah.
But so what? Looking back at the back to back, is there anything you would do differently now?
I mean, we're a totally different team now. So I'm thinking like different personnel. How does a different personnel tick? I don't know. I mean, obviously we have to look at how like you mentioned earlier, how our personnel is different. And so that causes you to really, really rethink a lot of things about the way you run things.
Yeah.
Not just X's and O's, but the relationship piece too. It's very different. And I don't know if I would do anything differently. You talked about superstition. I think this is what did it. I didn't change my shoes in 6 years.
Oh,
I wore the same shoes. It drove my husband crazy because he helps dress me because I have no fashion sense. And he hated that I wore those shoes, but I said, I haven't changed it. We've won 6 district championships. I'm not changing them. And so when we won state and they poured that water on me, they ruined my shoes.
Oh,
the shoes
man.
like straight up disintegrated. And so this past season I had to change my shoes.
Yeah.
And I think that's what did it.
I believe.
We think it's real, but it really isn't.
It's just all in our heads.
It's all in our head and what we do. Well, I think that whether you go once or twice, it's an honor. I think that especially to the kids, because I'm like, y'all can put that on your resume from now to the day you die. I mean, and I look to hire people because now I'm in that role. I think that there's always coaches that are really good at X's and O's, or really good at like building relationships and character development. But to find a coach that's good at both, that's the person I want to hire. And I always tell the girls that. I said, when you put that on your resume, you're going to know that that's what we're looking for. We're looking for a person that is going to be invested into you being a better basketball coach, but also someone who's going to do the other stuff, the character building, the relationship building, the mental aspect of the game. Because there's always a coach, it's one or the other. They're great, everyone loves them, but their X's and O's suck.
Right. Yeah.
Or vice versa. Their X's and O's are great, but they're considered, a jerk. And, the parents don't like them.
Right.
So, my advice also to younger coaches, like, have that beautiful blend of both.
I feel like that's hard to find.
Really hard.
Now more than ever, because people just don't.
Well, I think when you're younger in your career, you're just so focused on winning. That you don't think about the relationships. And then as you get older, you're like, you get a little soft, so to speak. And you're like, man, what's most important is that we produce good people. And then they forget about the X's and O's, and they don't ever bring both at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think that's what younger coaches need to work for, strive for that.
That's a question. So, just listening to you talk, a lot of what y'all do with your players is just who you are. I think naturally, like you said, she said some of the things that she does, and you're thinking, well, now that I think back, I do a lot of those same things. I know her favorite Coach Purple, and we have these relationships. But that's probably just how you are by nature. And so a person can get better at X's and O's. They can go to clinics and camps and learn, but can they learn that part of it? Can they learn how to be genuinely caring for the kids and build those relationships, or is it just some people just don't have it?
I think part of it is just like she was saying, it's kind of experience. It's because I was that young coach who I was going to win and I was going to do anything possible to win, but I wasn't good at the relationship piece. And then looking back, I'm like, man, that was what changed things for me, was understanding how important the relationship piece was. So I think you can have it. I just think you have to be willing to do a little bit of self-reflection. And, is it something you're actually going to focus on and care about? If you care about the success of your program and growing the profession, or not. But for me, it was just experience, and it was knowing, 8 years ago, how the boneheaded stuff that I did and said, that's not helpful. And kids are never going to forget something that you said to them.
I think it's a crucial question you ask yourself, is where I think coaches go wrong. Because they think, what can that kid do for me?
Mm-hmm.
How can they help my career? How can they help me win games? And if they don't, you kind of get to the side.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to be able to ask, how can I help with that kid?
Mm-hmm.
How can I help them succeed? Because if I help them, then they're going to in turn help the program.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people are asking themselves the wrong question. Like, what can you do? How many points can you score? Like, no, like, how can I help you be a better scorer?
Mm-hmm.
Like, just flip the script
Mm-hmm.
on it,
Mm-hmm.
and your whole mentality will change to be more empathetic, compassionate, but also firm. And I think that, can that be learned? Well, I think it comes natural when you truly see your team as your family. Mm-hmm. If you don't, and you're like, it's like the coaches that just check grades during the season. Mm-hmm. Well, that is almost the worst message you can send. Mm-hmm. I only care about you when you can do something for me. Mm-hmm. But in the off season, you're not checking grades. Mm-hmm. I doubt your kids are running through a brick wall for you.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I think that those are the types of things that show that you truly care of, and are relaying the message. How can I help you?
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll see that, I think. 'Cause we just had a conversation the other day with the group, about working in service of others. I'm here in service of you, and then hopefully that example is you guys are working in service of each other.
That's right.
Playing for you, and you're playing for him, and he's playing for him, and you're playing for each other, and that kind of thing.
Well, and I think it's important, not just for certain players or just the players. You kind of alluded to what can you do for me? Points, this, that, and the other. But your 12th man on the bench is equally as valuable to your program as your starting point guard, and even our managers. Like we have managers try out. We have managers who don't make tryouts. Trainers. Yeah. I've fired managers. I've fired trainers.
Cruel.
And because they are equally as important to a program as your players. The parents are. Every banquet, every year I talk about it, and I'm not quite sure if it really does stick or not, but everybody is vital to the success of the program. Not just the coach, not just your top 7 players. Everybody's vital. Your injured player, when we had our first ACL injury, again, boneheaded thing that I made a mistake of years ago, is you keep all of the players involved. Mm-hmm. You don't, you have a season-ending ankle injury or knee injury or whatever, so you go sit on the end of the bench and busy yourself. You're a distraction. You can't do that. You can't do exactly. So that's our first girl who went down with her ACL this year. I bought her a notebook just like mine. I bought her a notebook, and I said, I need you to be my film reviewer. And I said, when they're running blobs and when they're running offense, I need you to be able to tell us which one it is so I can echo it real fast. And she would come to practice, Coach, here's what I came up with, and you have to buy in to their value. I'm not just going to give her a notebook and say, here, busy yourself. Hey, what did you get from it? And let them know that they're important. And I think sometimes that goes over, we overlook that sometimes here. And I know I did. You have to show everybody who's a part of your program, from the athletic trainers to the coaching staff, to the players, to the managers, you have to show how important they all are. Because if I had to do the job of the manager and the coach and the athletic trainer, there's no way.
I tell you, another big piece that guys miss out on is, we always had guys play against us, and that was the most most valuable 5 guys that prepared us. And when I didn't have 5, my male assistant coaches would have to jump in, and I'm like, your tongue hanging out, let's go. It doesn't matter. But unfortunately, unless you bring in men, no, y'all don't get the next level of pressure that we get, that we have to. If you're in this area and you're not using guys at practice, it's going to be hard to get to state. And if you do get to state, it's going to be hard to win it because those girls from Dallas and Houston you can't. And you need the men to do that for you, the boys to do that for you.
That's what we talked about. I spoke at the South Padre Clinic this year, and that's one of the things I talked about. Is how a few years back we started implementing a scout team, and that was the number one question after the presentation that coaches wanted to ask me. They were so into this whole idea of a scout team, and I guess I was kind of caught off guard. I was like, well, you don't have that, you know?
Yeah.
Well, if we even will put boys in our athletic period who got cut from the boys team, and those are the kids that we practice against, and they, on the boys side, they're probably not as skilled, but they at least bring some height or speed. But it's good for them too, because it gives them buy-in.
Yeah.
When we brought our boys on that scout team, when we won state, those boys got a ride of a lifetime. And the next
That's
year,
one regret for me too that I saw Dawn Staley do, is she gave her guys a ring, and I wish I had done that. I didn't do that.
We didn't do that. We didn't, and I probably should have too, but we let them on the floor. They got a picture with all of us when we won, and they got to ride the charter bus. Yeah. And even the next year, and some of the boys were on varsity the next year. Like, Coach, can we be on your scout team? I said, boy, no, you're playing.
Yeah.
You're on varsity. No.
Would they love it?
Yeah. They got a ride of a lifetime.
Have you figured out when to wear your ring, and when it's important to?
I wear it. I'm wearing it now. I wear it to basketball stuff. My husband said, at least wear it to your basketball stuff.
Yeah.
But when I first got it and we went to TGCA, I remember, TGCA gives us one, and then THSCA, and then we have our own. And I had them on every finger, and my husband's like, you got to stop that. I said, hey, it's new right now.
You gotta take that picture.
It's new right now. It'll wear off of it eventually. But the TGCA one I didn't even know what to order on that one. I was overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So what do you even get? And the one who opened the box, is
right after this,
after it,
so awesome.
That was Jason Raymer, who is from Fredericksburg, and he was the volleyball coach when I was there. And he was on TGCA staff. And anyway, I said, well, Coach Raymer, he's still Coach Raymer. He's never not going to be Coach Raymer. Coach Raymer, I don't know what to do right now. What do I order? He goes, Houy, you just always order the biggest. And I was like, all right, well, then get me the biggest. He's like, done.
It's funny. Well,
Yep.
I think that's pretty much it, unless you have any other.
I think we hit it all. I had my 4 questions, but we got way beyond the 4 questions.
Yeah.
It was honestly way better than I probably could have imagined.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you.
Cool. Thank
It's
you.
fun to get to talk basketball.
Yeah, no, I definitely miss it. So this was fun for me. I miss it. When y'all had the All-Star game, I was able to commentate. That was so awesome.
Was it?
And if someone would call me, I'd be like, let's go.
Hey,
just talking the game, and and I remember Bobby would looking at me like, what are you saying? Because I was like, cookies. And he's like, what does that mean? I'm like, dude.
It's called coaching connection.